Oh, we are inside. Exciting. The first thing I should say, actually, is if you watched the previous video on the Kangoo, where we're trying to balance the battery, I had a chat with a customer, and they are absolutely happy that we take the battery out and proceed, basically. So I said to them it's going to be a couple of weeks. I've got a Zoe in the workshop at the moment that I've just got the stack out. It's got a burnt neutral pin. I've sort of featured that previously. But yeah, that's partway through, and I've got another motor to do and a couple of Zoes to diagnose. So, you know, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I'm quite keen to get that in. There was a really interesting comment actually about the way the balance leads come off the cells, and that there could be corrosion. So it could be misreading. I've seen that before. So yeah, that would kind of explain why the voltage didn't act like a cell that has that voltage kind of thing. So the voltage sort of yeah, it diverged rather than coming closer, which we'd expect. So interesting. Yeah, very interesting. Really pleased that the customers authorized that. So what have we got here? Well, first thing I should say, please do subscribe if you haven't already done so, and have a look at the membership as well. That might be interesting. So this is a circuit board from a Mitsubishi i-miev. I don't have the car, I just have this board. So your garage sent this to me to repair. So these boards can have a fault. I've done quite a few of these, and yeah, basically I need to get that board off. So looking a bit closer, so someone's been at this before, and it's fairly obvious because you can see that obviously something's happened there. But then here, hopefully you can see this well, but that track has been lifted up and there's obviously a hole there. So someone's tried to sort of push that pin through, or they've yanked it through from the other side. So yeah, it's got quite a few sort of mounting holes there. It's a multi-layered board. Yeah, not great for a start, that. And if we look on this other side, so we can see we've got another track lifted. If I just get a pencil, I can point things out. So we've got a track lifted here, and also if you can see that chip above, that one with BOC or AOC, BOC I think, isn't it? If I'll just rest that on that finger. Yeah, you see we've got a leg that's literally missing there, been ripped off. So when I got this in, and I've sort of been, this has been on the back burner, I've been working up the kind of energy to look at this really. When I got this in, I went straight back to the garage and said that, you know, what do you expect me to do with this kind of thing? Being blunt, being realistic, someone's been at this before, this is quite damaged. The garage said, yeah, we did notice a bit of damage, but that's what it was like when it came into us. So it seems like the customers had a look at it, or someone's had a look at it on the customer's behalf. Yeah, fortunately in this case, I've got some of these boards because I tend to keep old units with different faults because they come in useful in situations like this. Because that, I mean, I just can't repair that leg. I mean, what am I meant to do with that? I mean, somebody probably can, but it's not me. My soldering's pretty good, but I don't do micro soldering. You know, somebody would probably just sort of yeah, just cut the edge of that chip back, just kind of shave it back, and then just solder a little tab onto there. But that person is not me. So yeah, but I know how to get these off. But this one is junk anyway. So what we're going to do with this is we're going to get the Dremel and we're going to cut the corners. So what we've got is we've got a pin there. We've got a pin here. That one's just a hole, I think. We've got 2 pins at the top. Hold on, caller. Yeah, no, there's 1 pin at the top. So no, you can see there's like 2 pads on the top, but there is 1 pin. So 1 on each at the top. If I rest that on there, and the light will be a little bit better. Then we've got 3 down here, which they've obviously had a good go at. And then we got 2 here. So I've obviously tried to get the solder out of these and pull them up. The thing with these boards is they're really, I know that they're robust to go on the road, but if you pull them in the wrong way, they just come apart. And that's exactly what's happened here. So that track's been lifted up. So I think they've probably pulled that pin through. I mean, it's not pretty, is it? So in those holes, there's like kind of like a tube, or like a sock, like a metal bit that goes through, so that you've got something to solder onto, and then that is connected to that track that, well, it's not anymore, is it? But it was connected to that track. So yeah, so the sort of collar or tube that goes through that hole is on that track, and then you can obviously put a pin through it And I've got some of the little mounting pins which I might use. So they're kind of like, you get like a plastic, I'll find you some in a minute, but yeah, like a little line of plastic with the pins that go through, and you can just slot those in, which is kind of cool. But yeah, with these ones, because I've done these before, those pins, these pins that you can see that go through, they've got like a little tab, so when they put them in, they only sit so far down, then they obviously sort of solder them, it holds them together. So yeah, so that tube goes through. That is obviously totally missing, which is, or it's been ripped up into this board. The chance of getting it back in the hole is probably somewhere around 0. So we've got that track there that needs to go through to the other side of the board. Those two will need to come out as well. So that one on the left is coming from that pad, and then onto there. That one in the middle, there's tabs top and bottom, so that's kind of like the sort of negative of the board, I think, because that's like kind of the background. So that's got its 2 tabs. That one's fine. That one we need to do something with. Yeah, that's going to be fun. So we probably, I might put a long pin through it and solder it. What I'll probably do is put a pin through, there's nothing in the tube, then maybe cut that track, scratch back a bit of the green stuff, and then literally just put like a small wire between the sort of pin that goes through and that track. We'll see. I obviously had a go at this as well. I think these ones are not connected on this side at all. Let's have a look at that side. It's going to be really hard to see. We're going to need to have a look. I think they're connected to these, all these resistors and capacitors here. We'll have a look when we get this off, but yeah, we can't, there's no way we can pull at this at all. We've got to get this off, just, you know, without doing any kind of yanking or anything, because it's already so fragile. So yeah, what I'm literally going to do is Dremel that corner off, Dremel that corner off, Dremel that corner off, and Dremel all around here. We'll see how this goes, because this bit's going to be tricky. But even if we're just left with these 3, so we'll start with the 1 and 2 probably, or the 1, and that's 1 as well, but it's got 2 pads. That one's obviously not populated. That's what it looks like. Yeah, try and cut around this, or we'll see what happens really. But yeah, obviously these will be easy because there's only 1 on them. That's going to be a little bit harder. I have done this with taking this whole board off, and then actually reuse this board, put it back on again once it's yeah, once the repair's been done under here. But yeah, obviously this one's no good. But yeah, to do this you have to remove all the solder from down in these tubes, and yeah, it's not easy. I've got all kinds of stuff like this. This is like a basic soldering wick, which is some good stuff. Chip quick, which is meant to be even better. I personally, I don't think there's a massive amount between them. I've got liquid flux, got all that kind of stuff. You can get chip quick paste and all that kind of, but that tends to be more for the actual chips rather than this kind of thing. But yeah, to get these off, you've got to, the sort of proper way is you remove all of the solder out of here. Slight difficulty, they use lead-free solder on these, and it's harder to work with. So I use a leaded solder, a kind of standard 60-40, that kind of thing, 0.7 thickness, which melts really easily. I find that quite good. Not good obviously doing bigger stuff, but you've got to make sure the pads are warm enough, because the solder melts really easily because it's thin. But yeah, you would normally suck all the solder out of these. You can use like a solder sucker and all that. I've never had great, you know, yeah, sort of success with those, to be honest. Probably because I'm using the cheap ones. I'm sure the professional ones are really good, but I don't do many of these jobs, so I can't really justify it. But yeah, so normally if we were going to get this off and do the repair underneath here and put it back, I would basically use some flux, use some of that wick, and try and suck some of the solder out. It never all comes out. What I then do is get some of my 60-40 solder and literally solder it back in, and because what's in these pads, in the, you know, this solder that's in there at the moment is a lead-free solder, and it doesn't melt as easily as my solder. So I'm kind of like watering it down with the leaded solder, if that makes sense, and I'm making it more workable. And then you kind of like put some in and take it all out, and put it in and take it out, and just do that repeatedly until there's none in there, and you can just then like push on this and it just moves. You can't pull it until there's nothing there. If you basically try and yank it or put any real pressure on it, then this is exactly what happens. So yeah, something a little bit different. I'm probably going to sort of do stage 1 today, where I cut these, get this off, clean it up, get another replacement board, and just kind of like plan this out basically, because it needs a lot of concentration, steady hand. You're looking at something really closely, and I was going to say you, but you might be able to, but I can't maintain that level of sort of close work for, well, I can't do it all day certainly, but do it for, you know, a couple of hours, get this sorted out, and then we'll sort of come back to it tomorrow, and then maybe do the repair, the sort of putting it all back in one go, or kind of do the bulk of it and then finish it off, see how it goes. The major concern with jobs like this is obviously the person who's attacked this is not experienced with this job. Okay, we know that bit's obvious. So who diagnosed this car? Because I've also had similar repairs like this. Someone sends you something, oh yeah, this bit's faulty, but someone's attempted a repair, and you fix, you know, let's say it was this one, we fix this, you put it back on the car, and the car still doesn't start. And when it actually gets diagnosed properly, the car's got a different fault. But much like the person didn't know how to do the repair, they didn't know how to do the diagnosis. So the car potentially doesn't have, or didn't have, a fault in this area. It does now, obviously, but may not have originally had a fault in this area. But the person has caused a fault. Now you've got a car with two faults. You've got the original fault, and then you've got the one caused by the bodged attempt at a repair. So yeah, I sort of have explained all this to the garage, but they are absolutely happy to proceed. Customer is happy. It might take basically more time and more money, and might still not be fixed. You know, that's the reality. I'm fairly confident about this, to be honest. Well, we need to check the state of this once we get it all cleaned up, but yeah, I think we can link it all up. It's not easy because I don't have the car. I just got sent this in the post. So I would rather put this board on and test it. But, you know, I can test all my little connections. We should be okay, but it's just nice to see it. And then, you know, you can sort of do the diagnostics, and I can look at the readings coming through here and just make sure it's all sort of like spot on, basically. But yeah, we will do what we can, go from there, and see what happens. Yeah, so fun and games. Right. Well, I'm going to get the Dremel and just get cutting, and yeah, we will come back in a bit. All right, cheers. Well, something amusing just happened. So I just started to cut through here, and this board got very wobbly, and when I stopped, it was just hanging off. So this actually was just wedged back down. So someone has actually had this off. And then gone, oh, I don't know what to do now, because they don't appear to have actually fixed anything. They've just damaged it. This is obviously scrap anyway, because it's got a broken leg. One of these pins just came straight out, so now we can kind of see the damage, literally. So this pin and this pin are just literally not connected to anything. That's just for vibration purposes. And then these are the actual pins that are kind of connected to things. So we can see how these ones are connected, so that's absolutely fine. And that one, is that one the ripped off track? Hold on, let's have a look. So that's the inner one there. Yes, so that's the one with the ripped off track, and then these other two connect underneath. So yeah, that one we've got to resolder through. We've got a ton of flux residue around here as well to clean up. Lovely, so we can see what's going on. Then these two, I think, just connect down the other side, or is that one onto the sort of negative on this side as well? Yeah, it looks like it. Okay, so that one we're not going to have a problem with the connection, because, well, it's not in too bad a condition and it's connected both sides. That one we need to make sure connects to the other side of the board. So yeah, it's not too bad, is it? Given, I mean, you've got to have a replacement one of these, because it's got a leg ripped off the chip. It's got quite a bit of damage. So if I just put that down there for a second, you can see here the hole's been ripped out, that hole's been damaged. These three might be salvageable, but yeah, it's not pretty, is it? Let's put it that way. Could that be reused if the chip wasn't damaged? Oh yeah, no, they've that. So the sort of tubes, certainly on these boards, they seem to be made in two halves. So you can see here, it looks like we've got nothing here. but I think it's kind of like a like the end of a trumpet. So you've got like a tube, it's got like a flanged outer bit on it. So those three have been ripped off, but there seems to be this half there, so it could potentially be salvageable. But yeah, and I think the three are on here. Oh, you can actually see on this pin, hold on, so on this end you can see all that crumpled mess. That is the end of the tube, that trumpety part that's meant to be in here. So they pulled the board, but it's still been soldered, and it's ripped it off and left it in there because that's the underside. Wonderful. So it's left the top in the board because it's flanged, but the bottom side it's just come straight off with a pin. So not pretty, but that bit was a lot easier than expected. So I'm going to want a soldering iron, clean all this up and get all these pins out, and then really see what we've got, and then we'll plan the repair. Well, that bit was easier, so yeah, maybe we'll be all right. Okay, cool. Are any of these just want to fall out? No, they seem to be in there. Those ones don't seem to have touched. Yeah, these ones actually are kind of all in there. Well, okay, that was exciting. Right, see what happens next. Okay, so cleanup stage is complete. Oh, where I mentioned those mounting posts, these are the things. You can use these, and then their sort of spacing there is kind of like standard. So we could use those to repair it. I've done sometimes in the past, but sometimes these things can be a bit of a faff. But yeah, here we've obviously got to do some custom stuff. So yeah, maybe we will, maybe we won't. I've also got some various thicknesses of wire and things that I sort of do it with. But yeah, this is all nice and clean now. So we can see that these ones, so that one goes through to the other side. That one, well, that one actually goes through, and then it comes back to that pad. So that makes that really easy to test. So we can test continuity here. This one is kind of like connected to the ground of this board. So someone's had a good rub on here, and they've gone as well. They've been putting some pressure on here to pull that board up. That's what's happened. So they've been soldering, trying to desolder and like lever the board. So that's why there's so much rubbing on here. And then as probably the board has actually popped up, and whatever they've been using to lever it has gone. Wonderful. So yeah, that one's lifted a little bit, but well, not really lifted, just creased the top there. That one is perfect. That's what you want. You want them all to look like that. If you can do it like that, give me your number. So not in a weird way. No, you can do these jobs for me. So yeah, that one's nice. We can see that's connected. This one, there's a little fold in there, but it looks okay. But we can test that. We've got like a test pad here. We can test all these. So that's all cool. This one is obviously a concern. Oh yeah, and I'll show you how that one connects as well. So let's cover that one that was on the right is now on the left. So you see that one connects to that pad and that goes through. Fun fact, so this is a multi-layer board. So if we lift it up, we can see, so you can see that where those three dots are, and then that like wiggly line. So that's to the right of that hole. So if we spin that round, it's to the left of that hole, and it's not there. So that is inside the board, because it's not that bit with all those components and those three lines, is it? No, it's sort of, yeah, to the side of that. Quite cool, isn't it? So we know this board is multi-layered. That's why you get those tabs coming up. It is underneath those, isn't it? But it's not that line. It's not those three lines. You can see them as a shadow. Probably if I get a nice bright light behind it. You can see the shadow of the things behind it now. Yeah, there you go. So you can see all the layers of the board. Quite cool. So that's basically why on this board you can have, just put it down for a second, you can have like this that seems to go nowhere. It goes to a pad off to the left, which obviously becomes to the right, and there's a pad. There's nothing there. But obviously underneath there, which is really hard to see because there's a solid copper layer on top of this, because of this solid, basically big whacking bit of copper that this one's connected to. Yeah, so there's a layer inside here. Pretty cool, isn't it? And they make stuff like this. Very cool. Right, so now our big concern is that one. So, yeah, so this is the one where the track's ripped off. So I've cleaned all of this up. There's a bit of flux residue in there. What we need to do is, yeah, my plan is basically as I was saying before. So I'm going to cut that off there. I'm going to scratch it back. Probably if I wiggle it enough, it's just going to come off. But I'll do it in a controlled, oh, there you go. It literally will. So scratch some of that, scratch this green stuff off so that I can solder a little, just a little wire onto there. And then something that's got some insulation on it, but just something that's thin, maybe just a single strand, see what we've got, and then bring that up to basically a pad, whether it's this this kind of thing or not. So there'll be something sticking through there, and we solder on the end of it. Yeah, actually, I'm just thinking about, because these sort of solder tubes, these metal tubes, and the solder is what keeps these pins in place, but that one's not going to have that. So maybe it's good if I use these things, because obviously the other ones are going to be holding that one in place. Yeah, interesting. I mean, yeah, there'll be a fair amount of rigidity, but potentially we'll see how that goes. So in terms of this board, obviously this is junk, that is no good, and I've just been digging through all my spares, and yeah, I might have done this kind of job once or twice before. So you can see this is what happens when you cut it out. So yeah, occasionally I cut them out just because it's easier and you guarantee that you don't damage the board. But yes, I mean, if you look at this one, this almost looks like it could be, how that's focusing, could be still in the circuit, apart from the fact that it is out, obviously nice and clean. Yeah, you can, oh yeah, you can see on these pins where I said they've got collars, so you can see that just there. So when they manufacture it, that's how they stop it just falling through. So when this pin, here's so fiddly, let's put it in that one because it's nice and clean. Yeah, when they go, sorry, five-handed job. One moment, please. So, as I was saying, when they put them in these holes, when they manufacture it, that collar, yeah, just enables that to sit down in there, and hopefully that's focusing. Yeah, it just sits in there and it doesn't fall all the way through, basically, which makes that slightly easier. So, yeah, I've got sort of my version of that. So yeah, we're going to utilize one of these boards. This one's got a fair amount of flux residue on it, but yeah, so some of those, see that method, I decided at that point to take it, kind of take it off the posts. So I had a guy that used to do this for me, and then he moved. That one obviously didn't go quite so well, but you know, it's off. We obviously didn't reuse these, but yeah, interesting. Yeah, so we'll find a nice one of these, put this back on, but we'll actually do the repair as well. So I'm going to presume that this car did have this fault and that it was correctly diagnosed. We'll do the repair anyway. What is the normal repair for this area of the board? What the person who looked at this was probably attempting to do. Whether that's what's actually wrong with the car is a different debate. But yeah, we will do this anyway. And yeah, we'll go from there, send it back to the garage, they can put it back on and see what they've got. This board is coded to the car, just to add. So yeah, that makes it even more difficult. So we have to reuse this board, or do some very complicated things, which is much easier to do this, basically, from past experience. So yes, I'm going to crack on with this. So we'll get this prepped. We don't need any more, so we're not going to reuse those old ones. I'll choose one of these boards, I'll do the actual repair, and yeah, start getting this back together. All right, catch you in a bit. Okay, so I'm going to use this one for various reasons, which are not very interesting, but I've cleaned it all up, got all the pins out and everything, so that's ready to go. Yeah, and I thought I'd just test, sort of fit one of these little mounting pins. So I've sometimes used these and sometimes haven't. So yeah, they sit in there quite nicely. They're fairly easy to fit. The downside of these is you really want to see, when you've soldered it, that the solder has definitely flowed right up into this, yeah, into that cylinder, and you can't really, it covers it up. That's the downside of those. So I mean, I can see in that one because I can look around the side, but when there's going to be three here, it's going to be more difficult. I mean, it's probably not a massive issue because that one's connected on the other side. Obviously the tube is connected through, albeit it is actually in two pieces. If you look at, it's my pencil, you can probably see it already, but you see that one, you see it's kind of like there's a half of it. And then there's kind of like another ring around the other side. So yeah, they're not a continual piece through. Interesting. But yeah, I think I'm going to use them. Obviously then we can test onto the pins to make sure that it's soldered on. Yeah, that'll be good, I think. Right, so I need to do these other pins and to get this board reback fitted and actually do the actual repair that they were probably attempting to do. And then, yeah, oh, and the solder pad on the back. So, yeah, I've exposed a bit of track here and put a little bit of solder on it. Didn't want to take initially, but it's probably just because it had some of this plasticky stuff still on it. But we've got our little solder pad, and then we can solder that onto here. I was debating what wire to use. I didn't know about using a bit of solid strand, but there might be a bit of movement. But I'm going to try a little bit of thin multi-core. Yes, it looks big when it comes to that, but yeah, what I've done in the past is used a bit of wire, soldered it on, get it a nice sort of size, so you can solder it on, and then super glue it to the board, stop it from moving. So I may look out at like a breadboard test lead, but it just might be a little bit thin. I don't know. It's got to survive vibration in future, and that's what this is multi-core car. This is from a wiring loom. One of those, but I'll get this mounted, get the repair done, and we'll go from there. All right. Cheers. Okay, so those sort of mounting pins are on. Let's have a look at this side. So yeah, they went on quite nicely actually. You kind of just have to hold them a little bit steady as you're soldering them. So a little bit tricky, but yeah, nice bit of solder, nice kind of shiny solder sort of cones, towers there, whatever you want to call it. That one, the second one is a little bit bulbous, but I was trying to kind of make sure there's enough solder flow down into that tube so we got a good connection. So I'm just going to test them with the meter. I've obviously got to do that repair on that pin there. I think I'm going to do that next, and then I can check them all. That's going to be a good idea, I think. And then we can mount that board back on the top. I've got to do the actual repair, obviously. And yeah, then I can test them from one circuit board to another circuit board. So right, if I just put this down a second. So what I mean by that is we do a complete test end to end. So for example, I'll test from like this point here to like that on the board. So wherever this pin goes to on the board, so that's gonna be it's gonna be this one, isn't it? This one here. So I'll test like from the side of that component there, which is a capacitor. So from this point, so I'll put one lead on here and I'll put another lead on here. So we're testing literally from the next component along through all my joints, through all my pins, and making sure that is properly connected. And that's the kind of testing you need to do with this. The other thing I should say is if you do a lot of this, especially with things like your IPA, I've got flux, so that I can squirt it on to get it to really flow. It creates a lot of fumes. You've got to have ventilation. I've got the window open. It's not very warm, but the window is open. But I don't do a lot of this kind of stuff. If I did a lot of this, I'd need much better setup in terms of sort of fumes and all that kind of stuff, fume extraction. But yeah, so yeah, obviously just take care. Sensible. If you do an odd bit, not a massive issue, is it? So, okay, yeah, I think this one next, and then get that other board on. Yeah, cool. Right, catch you in a moment. Well, this part was a lot more difficult than expected. What I've ended up with is a solid piece of metal with heat shrink on it. So I tried using some multi-strand, but the heat would just melt the insulation. Trying to solder multi-strand onto a small pad under here was just like impossible, basically. So I found a bit of wire, bent it to the exact shape that follows the track, because the other thing is when the insulation sort of melts, it's really close to the side to, you know, there's just a tiny layer to effectively other contacts, so you're risking connecting something you don't want to. And then I had the post coming through here, so then I was soldering onto the side of it, but then you're soldering and it's really close here. So I decided to go with a solid piece of wire, so that goes through, and then yeah, it pops up. Yeah, it pops up there. So that is the end of the wire. That is literally soldered onto the board the other side. It's also been super glued down as well, so it is literally glued to the board. You can just about see, and with a very careful look, you can see that there is a nice bit of solder underneath there. You can see it a little bit more clearly on the other side, actually. I think depends whether I can get the camera in there. Oh, it's really hard to get the light in the right place. Hold on. Let me just give my head torch to the camera. Oh, seamless. It's kind of hard to see because of the angle, but yeah, getting it, if the camera's too close, it goes blurry. But underneath here there is a nice pad of solder onto there, and I've sort of wiggled this and checked that it's definitely soldered down, and then I've checked that with my meter. So I've gone from sort of that side of that resistor here, let's get you in the middle there, and onto the wire there. So unfortunately the heat shrink was too fat to go through the hole, but it doesn't matter because there would be a bare pin in there anyway, so that is fine. Crumbs. Right, so I put this back on. This is kind of sort of insulation, separation kind of stuff that's originally under there, and then that's my pin just coming through that hole. So that's there nicely. Oh my word. Right, so I'm nearly ready to put this on. The other thing I've got to do is the actual repair, which I still haven't done. So the fault that you actually get, yeah, in this area, I have to actually do that repair, and then I can solder this board back down, and then I can send it back. I'll snip these off. Quite like these because there's a bit of height, so if you need to kind of like straighten them up or whatever, wiggle them a bit, you can do. But yeah, I think I'll solder it sort of down. Yeah, sits quite nicely. Yeah. Crumbs. Right. So yeah, I'll sort this out, solder this up, and then we will pretty much be there. Crumbs. Right. Okay, it is done. So it's back on. I lifted it up a little bit, so I didn't push it all the way down, partly because if you have to take it off again, it makes it a lot easier. So yeah, it's not pushed right down to the pegs on here. I did think I could put a little bit of heat shrink just on that pin there, but it would have been a bare pin originally, so it's not a major issue. But yeah, we are all good. So yeah, I was just checking that this is all, the glue's definitely dry and that is solid, which it is. Yeah, that, I'm quite pleased with that. I mean, that was not easy, but usually if it looks good, it is good kind of thing, you know, a neat solution. We're definitely not going to have an issue of it touching anything that you shouldn't do. That heat shrink just opens up as it goes in the hole. It's nice and solid. It's soldered down. I mean, I literally can't do anything more with that. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. It's quite neat. Yeah, I've chopped off the pins. So yeah, I've sort of tested, as I said. So I've gone, so like for example, to test this one, you test it from here, and then you test like down to here, because it's going down there and along here. So you're testing all the way through that pin, and that's what I've done each time. So this one, where does that one connect to? I think the best you can do, sorry if I get too close, it comes out of focus. Best you can do is top of that pin, or maybe just onto the side, and then sort of down onto here. So, yep, and that's what you're trying to do basically. So here you test over here, and then that's the one that goes through onto the other side, isn't it? So yeah, test it through to the other side of the board, that kind of thing. Yeah, so that one I think is the one that ends up on that pad there. So you test it from here, and then you test up to like here, you see. Anyway, I'm happy with that. I definitely need to go and do something else. My hands are a little bit stiff now from all that concentrating and holding things steady. But yeah, hopefully that was interesting. Yeah, it's just the kind of kind of thing you end up with if you do enough sort of electrical repairs. You're gonna have to fix someone else's bodge. I just distinctly hope that it was an issue in this area to start with, and that it wasn't misdiagnosed and then broken, and then we got two faults, because that would be really annoying. But yeah, cool. Hopefully that was interesting. Thank you if you made it this far. And yeah, I will catch you on the next one, which might be that Kangoo battery repair. See what happens next. God, I need to diagnose a Zoe, so that might be interesting. Who knows? We'll see. Right, catch you later. Cheers.